She was at my boyfriend's house at the time. I was in the bathroom, snooping around the sink and in the above-head cabinets for trinkets or serums I could nick without him noticing. I was like that I'd check out of hotels mysteriously weighing a pound more than when I checked in, or leave work with an extra stapler, or pot plant, and I assumed that this time was the same. The moment I'd turn on the sink to wash my hands, the glow of the overhead mirror light darkening my eye bags, I'd hear a short and strained syllable, like the beginning of a scream one would try to unleash during a nightmare. Right after that was a harsh womanly scream, one I didn't know my sister Alyssa could make. I'd open the plywood door and I would see Alyssa's boyfriend in that cowboy button-up and what was originally blue denim, poking her with something. I hadn't really thought of it beforehand, but being stabbed can be really quiet. All I heard was the movement of my blood and the faint ringing in my ear that hasn't diminished since I was 12. He looked at me with bloodshot eyes maniacally open with a sense of steadfastness, but also with dread and a human terror. I could tell he was operating on impulse, and when he would come down, he would probably feel such a concentrated emotion no person could ever detail, only able to be expressed with some sort of physical analogy. He was saying to me, with his eyes, as he was stabbing my sister to death, "Please make me stop." That's when the vision would end. It started sometime in the middle of September, a few minutes before dinner, just after my mother beckoned for me to set the table. I was in the vision for a little over a minute, but no time had elapsed in real life. Mom stood awkwardly at the end of the hall after I didn't respond. "You okay, Michael?" she called warmly. She swiftly picked up her hair and tied it. I goggled at her, processing the dual image that had just been thrown at me. Alyssa had only broken the news of having a boyfriend the week before. Less than enough time for us to organize some sort of family dinner in which we had the opportunity to judge whether the two were a good match. I knew it was him because she had shown us a picture of him before. "You okay?" she asked again. She looked troubled. As she waddled to me, she stopped in her tracks abruptly and her face was wiped clean of the compassion she was displaying moments ago. She brought her cupped hands to her thin lips and screamed into them. Her glassy eyes almost popped out of their sockets. We ran upstairs to Alyssa's bedroom and burst through the door, and there she was. She screamed and hurled her phone at the opposing wall. She was completely fine. Mom and I got no sleep that night. We sat on the derelict black leather couch on the back porch that Dad refused to donate and stared into the ink black night. She held her half-used cigarette between two fingers and took a drag every 10 minutes after bobbing her head in contemplation. We don't live rurally, so the night sky is void of any stars. "Mom," I asked in a soft tone to prepare my question. "Yes, sweet, can we talk?" "No," she declared. "But, no, I do not want to talk about it, not even slightly." She shifted to the coffee table in front of us and snuffed the cigarette butt in the clay pot that once had a succulent in it. Standing up, she bent over and squeezed her face in some sort of sympathetic smile and pinched my cheek between her thumb and pointer finger. "Everything's going to be okay," she hushed to me, her breath warm and smelling of the stale coffee she drank in the middle of the day. The next day, the vision transpired at exactly the same time as before. Only this time dinner was running late, so I was in my unembellished end of teenagerhood bedroom. When this vision occurred, I had amnesia. I did not remember the previous vision until after this one concluded. It was more like I was embodying it, more like I was living in it. I was just as disturbed as the last time. Mom opened the door at the tick of 5:30, chalky-eyed. She already had her signature cigarette in hand. "You will not have him over tomorrow." Mom's words seeped through the paper-thin walls like a flash flood through damp soil. "This is now about a fortnight after the first vision. You've never even met him before. What's your problem?" Alyssa howled. "A mother knows best, Alyssa." She was clutching at straws, trying to find an excuse to get him not to come. "This isn't even the first boyfriend I've had. And I'm 18 now. I'm legally an adult. Alyssa had more dating experience than me, and I'm a year older than her. I don't even want to move out of my parents' house anytime soon." Mom lost the argument, and I stayed as far away from the situation as I could. Soon enough, tomorrow came, and he was sitting across from me at lunchtime. The family never had lunch together except for when guests were over, as my father was hellbent on leaving a good first impression, as he told me. "So, just in," Alyssa said amidst a loud silence. Yes, Alyssa, her boyfriend responded with infatuation. I couldn't look at his face. Could you put my plate away? She offered a saucy plate to his veiny hands and pouted her bottom lip at his face. Of course, when Justin stumbled to the kitchen and spent a century figuring out where the dishwasher was, Alyssa leaned over the table by her elbows and whispered to me, "What do you think of him? I don't think Mom likes him, as in I know Mom doesn't like him. He had the same outfit from the visions, and the little chin stubble, but not the face of desperation, that psychotic face without reason or restraint, those beady eyes staring at me from a sunken, pallid face, somehow focusing all of his thoughts on me while stabbing my sister, bordering between dream and reality before the consequences roll in like a dust storm from the countryside. At the time he looked quite sweet, and not the kind of guy you'd think to be a murderer. He stayed over at the house for another 2 hours, during which I spoke to Mom. Mom, I know you don't want to talk about it, but he's wearing the same clothes. It's going to happen tonight. I told her, on my knees, while she sat in a rocking chair above me. A tear dripped from her face, and she caught it with flat fingers. I don't want to look at him, she responded croakily, then held my face and wept, my baby. Eventually she came out and became acquainted with him. She was not visibly distraught or had shown any sign of being distressed. She was calm, and not even he could have detected her disdain for him. "All right, Alyssa, it's time we go," he said dismissively of us after a frank conversation, to which we forced ourselves to go with him. "Mom," Alyssa moaned out the side of her mouth. "It's alright, Alyssa, we just want to come over and then you'll have plenty of alone time with Justin when we're gone." We exchanged a look. Justin's car was nothing out of the ordinary, one of those cheap cars that all of the college kids buy with daddy's money the moment they graduate. He mentioned that. Dad said, "I'll pay for either the car or your tuition." I picked the car. He chuckled, and Alyssa's mouth swung open and she let out what sounded somewhat like a laugh, while grazing his arm with her hand. It's a weird sort of dread you get when you know someone's about to die. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone's death would occur that night, and it stuck with me like a hard pill to dry swallow. I've always been a bit afraid of death, even if it's when you're old and surrounded by family. When we got to Justin's house, or his parents' house, but they weren't home, he got out of the car and let Alyssa out. While the two were unlocking the front door, Mom and I were so panicked we weren't speaking, only doing, "Call the police, call the damn police, Mom," I hastily said to her as she fidgeted with her rhinestoned iPhone, dialing the 3 numbers. As the phone rang, I held her and said, "I'm going in. I'm going to look for stuff I can use to stop him from hurting anyone. When you come in, that's my cue. Don't leave the two alone." I entered the fusty house, thick with the mist from a diffuser hiding behind a corner, and sat with the two in the living room. It was well kept and a cool white, bleak. Justin had a broad arm around Alyssa, while she tucked her fists into her lap. "So, Justin, what do you study?" I asked, assuming he was in college. "Oh, I'm on my break year. I'm not studying anything right now, but I think I'll do something businessy," he responded truthfully. I thought of him as immediately naive. My heart raced when Mom walked in, phone in hand, because I knew then that it was time. I might see myself to the bathroom, I said. When I entered, I threw myself to my knees and scrambled through the cabinets and threw away the things I had already seen before in the visions, the things I contemplated stealing many times over. When the entire cabinet was emptied and all of the sprays and deodorants were on the floor around me, I heard that syllable, that little shriek, the one that someone having a nightmare would emit. I burst out of the door, and on cue, that womanly scream from the vision was let out. By my mother. She must have been in the visions too, and now she was in the hall watching Justin hold Alyssa in a headlock. That psychotic face, the one ingrained in my irises, was now being pointed at me by Justin, the face of my nightmares. For a moment all I could think about was death. How horrific corpses are to look at, how they once belonged to someone and then all they bring is horror or grief, or how they once harbored a life. I threw myself at the two before the stabbing could ensue, and Alyssa fell to the side as I held Justin against the neighboring wall. The knife he was holding clattered on the tile, and being so much stronger than me, effortlessly clenched my neck and spun me around in such a position that he could either throw me to the ground or knock me into the wall. Michael, Mom cried at me, wound up whatever she was holding and threw it at us. I threw myself backwards, and it flew into Justin's throat effortlessly. She made no noise, but I could tell from her face that it just dawned on her that she was now a murderer. She was not aiming to kill, she just wanted us to break up our fight. Justin, in the remaining 20 seconds of consciousness he had left, picked up the original knife and plunged it into Mom's chest. It all happened too quickly for me to intervene, but at this point I didn't have to, as he fell to the ground, plucked the blade from his neck, and drained like a shattered bottle of wine. The moment the clock ticked 5:31, blue and red light flooded the room from the windows, and the blaring sirens drowned out Alyssa's tormented screams. Mom is in the hospital, and she's in a stable condition. I visit her every day, and spend more than I make on an hourly wage on flowers and gifts for her. She loves my visits. Alyssa comes with me often, but spends most of her time in her bedroom. The trial is in a month, but we don't need to worry. There's too much evidence that Justin was the aggressor. Mom will never tell me what she saw in her visions, but I have a feeling it's not the same ones that I had. I'll never ask her though. I think I could paralyze her by bringing up that trauma. In the end, there are some things that you don't need to know, but only speculate about.